guys, welcome to another episode of the Commerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place for everything related to Amazon FBA private label and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, your host, founder and CEO of Ecomcy. And today we bring another special guest. His name is Brent, and he's the founder and CEO of MC Pathfinders, one of the top agencies right now when it comes to supporting your growth in Amazon. And today, the reason why I wanted to bring Brent, first of all, is because I think he's one of the top guys when it comes to sharing strategies and top things when it comes to the latest when in PPC mainly, which we know PPC is the thing that everybody's always looking to keep learning every single day. I mean, every single week, I feel there's something new in terms of strategies, tools, and things like that. And lately, there's been very interesting release by Amazon, which is basically Amazon Marketing Cloud, something that is realistically very niche yet. Not a lot of people really understand how to leverage this. And Brent is basically one of the experts I know in the field that has been leveraging this lately with his agency. So it's definitely a pleasure to have Brent here today to share some of that those insights with us. So Brent, it's a pleasure to have you here. How you doing, my friend?
Vincenzo, doing good, man. Thanks for the invite. It's cool to come on your show after knowing you for gosh, must be like 6 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
man, I know. We've been
Yeah.
sharing so many experiences together, like especially at events, man. Like we've
Yeah.
been basically crossing our paths mainly at every single event in Europe. We've been going out together, sharing meals together. So yeah, we've definitely been building a very nice bond there. That's why at the same time, I value so much that you're here because I know what you're really providing to the community in terms of value. And I definitely think that this episode is going to provide a ton of insights because we both know that the topic you're going to cover today, there's not really a lot of material out there in terms of how Amazon sellers can leverage this. So I think people is going to find this super interesting. Now, before we jump into that, what I'd like to do with you, which I do with all my guests, is just to use a few minutes to learn more about who's Brent in case people don't know you yet. Just tell us a little bit about your journey and basically how you basically ended up founding MC Pathfinder.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, let's rewind the clock maybe like 10 or 11 years. I was working at a B2B marketing firm. I know it's a long
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
But I was doing Google ads at a B2B marketing company, a very small B2B marketing company in Pennsylvania, where I'm from originally. And yeah, I did that for a few years, and then I switched careers into a totally different thing. I was actually working on yachts, like working on boats.
Wow.
But I had a friend
Fancy
down in
guy.
Florida. Yeah, I know. It was quite a jump. That's a whole story in itself. But I had a friend in that industry who really was on the cutting edge of like selling on Amazon, and was someone who the one day when I was like hanging out with him was like, "Hey, I get this thing like FBA. I'm like sending my products to Amazon, and they're selling it." And that was 2015. And I was like, "What? I've never heard of this." Like, I shopped on Amazon. I didn't know anything about logistics or anything like that. And he said, "Yeah, there's ads on the platform." And he's like, "You need to help me with the ads. I think you did ads." And I was like, "Yeah, I did ads in the past." And like, "Okay, I'll take a look." And I started running campaigns for this guy, and he was selling a product that was like roughly 90 some dollars US. And immediately we started to get clicks that were like anywhere from 10 to 30 cents. And we would get
Man,
pretty
I
good
miss those
sales.
days.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it was like it was obscene, right? And at that point, it was only sponsored products. There was no other ad types, at
Yeah.
least available to 3P sellers. You could get access
Mhm.
to, what we now know as headline search,
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
sorry, sponsored brands. See, it was headline search back in the day,
Yeah. Yeah.
through a different platform, but that didn't happen until some years later, even. But yeah, that's how I got started. So I was kind of there at the beginning, and then I immediately thought, well, this is an area I could do some consulting in and make some money, and started to switch to that. And then I thought, wow, this is a huge area. A lot of people need help with. Maybe I should start hiring people and start an agency. So it was all kind of accidental. I had other small ventures and businesses like myself, but none of them that really took off like this. And so I really just kept on that for many years. And now here we are. We'll be 9 years old in August of next year. So we're about,
Wow.
eight and a half now. But
Crazy.
yeah, so
Congrats.
Pathfinder.
Congrats, man. Yeah, what a journey. Yeah, it's funny because I totally agree. In 2014, 15, like the FBA thing, I remember it was this thing that came into play, and everybody was thinking, "Is this a scam? Is this really a real way of making money?" And then you start seeing all these people making millions out of nowhere, and yeah,
Right.
it was basically a combination of. I mean, the people start selling during those periods, which we know right now one of some of the biggest sellers, is because they took the early move advantage. You know, the CPC was
Exactly.
pretty much free. They had a product that had a ton of search, and there was no competition. So these three things combined, you know.
Yeah, those
Boom.
were the old days that we can say, like the Amazing Seller podcast. Scott Volker, you know, he's like
Exactly.
the one voice in the room that was really educating people on that. You know, kudos to him for doing that. But that opportunity was then kind of made transparent, and then you know we had
Exactly.
this wave of people that really figured it out. But advertising has always been at first a small part, and now I would argue you know a key part of a presence on Amazon, whether you're 1P or 3P.
Yeah.
And retail media in general is now a segment that I think Amazon made a lot more
Exactly.
accessible, because you know Walmart's
Hmm.
jumped on the bandwagon, and I
Hmm.
live in France. Like here in France, there's even some companies that have retail media like Cdiscount, like you can buy ads on Cdiscount, which
Hmm.
is like a marketplace very similar to Amazon.
Yeah.
So you know that's spreading to many other places too.
Yeah.
So I think that we've witnessed that kind of retail media, retail advertising um, revolution the past like 7 or 8 years. So it's
Yeah.
all kind of happened at the same time, and Amazon was one of the biggest drivers.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, we've been coming such a long way from 2014. I mean, you
Yeah.
mentioned, like, you know, we only had sponsored products and it was very basic. I remember. Now we're coming into 2023, entering 2024, and we have now Amazon Marketing Cloud, where you can combine all
Right.
this data. It's
Right.
massive, the huge jump that we basically happened over 10 years. I mean, right now we'll say in 2014 PPC, we could agree that you didn't have to be an expert on ads. Like, you could have basic understanding of few keywords, so
Yeah.
you could run the ads and you could make a good return. But right now,
Absolutely.
especially in the US, like, you really need to know what you're doing. Like, strategies need to go in depth. It really, you need to think outside the box, and that's where I think Amazon Marketing Cloud now is the cherry on top of the ice cream. Where basically, if you know how to leverage all this knowledge, you really can take it to the next level. And you know, before we jump into all the strategies and all the things that you can do with Amazon Marketing Cloud, I think we need to start with the definition, because most people don't even know what is Amazon Marketing Cloud, right? So
Yeah.
maybe give us just a quick summary about what is Amazon Marketing Cloud, and what is the idea behind why Amazon is bringing this to the table right now. Yeah.
Sure. And I love the way you kind of segued from all the way back in 2014 to, you know,
Hmm.
2024 being in a couple months here.
Yeah.
And what that evolution has been like, because it is like astounding. It's almost like
Yeah.
saying, you know, the Wright brothers created the airplane, and then now we're on the moon. It's like,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
because we're
Yeah.
basically, you know, we're on the moon right now with AMC. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of acronyms in the Amazon space, right? There's ACOS, there's TACOS, there's
Hmm.
DSP, there's AMC, there's Amazon Marketing Stream, AMS.
I know it's a mess.
There's so many, right? It's like it's awful.
Yeah.
But Amazon Marketing Cloud is pretty much, I would say, the unifying data store for all the other marketing efforts that exist on Amazon. So think
Hmm.
of it, obviously, it's like it says cloud, it's in the cloud, it's specifically
Hmm.
stored on Amazon servers. And what it is an instance that you can request from Amazon. And this is like a big bucket in the cloud where all your information about your advertising events goes into one place. And then you can query it through something called SQL, which is yet another acronym, sorry, but structured query language. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
programming, but not really. Basically, what you're
Yeah.
doing is you're asking this big bucket of data, hey, can you pull out all the events related to a specific user ID, which I'll get back to in a second, and then like give those to me so I can understand all the touch points in my advertising efforts.
Hmm.
And the user ID is basically what's called like a key in a database, and this ties all of the data sources together. So the user ID is pseudo anonymous, so like you can't say like this is Vincenzo, but you can say like
Yeah. It's
this
just a
user ID
number.
is like, you know,
Yeah.
email at random string of numbers at amazon.com,
Exactly.
whatever, right? Because one of the
Hmm.
big things that Amazon talks about when they talk about Marketing Cloud is it's privacy safe. So there's no way that you can say this individual person who lives
Yeah.
at, you know, 123 West House Lane
You cannot get
over here.
creepy. You cannot get creepy
Yeah,
with it.
you
Yeah.
can't do that stuff. And another thing to remember is that AMC instances are per account. So some people in the audience might know about DSP, and if you get access to DSP as a large company or an agency, you can just run a bunch of different DSP
Exactly.
campaigns and line items in there, and you can just see like this client, that client. But
Hmm.
the way that AMC works is it's per account and it's per specific you know, company. So you can't do that, and that's all for privacy reasons, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best way I can kind of sum it up quickly, right? It gathers all
Awesome.
these signals from Amazon ads. You can put your own inputs in there too. And you
Yeah.
can even subscribe to a couple of paid data feeds that come from Amazon themselves. But
Awesome.
that's a bit more technical. I don't think we'll cover
Yeah,
that. But this
of
is where you
course.
can query this stuff and start to paint like a complete picture of your kind of marketing efforts across multiple channels and over a
Awesome.
long period of time. 13 months
Awesome.
actually is the basic they give you.
Good. So now let's start with the basics before going inside the strategy itself. So I guess some of the questions people may have, first of all, is like on which marketplaces this is already being rolled out. Okay. And the second question, just to follow up with that one, will be, I guess, because we're talking about data, we know that whenever we use a tool that is heavily reliant on data in terms of having multiple inputs, you also need substantial amount, because if you don't, basically you're guessing, right? If you don't have enough, the sample of data is not big enough, right? You need enough data. So I guess the two questions is, first, which marketplace you can use this for, and the second, how big a seller must be to actually leverage this kind of technology, because if you don't have enough data, maybe you cannot really take advantage, you know?
Yeah, that second question is super important. I'll tackle the first one. AMC as a product has been out for more than a year. The earliest time we started using it was, I think, like Q3 of last year into the start of Q4, when we really started to use a software solution and enable it for 2 or 3 of our clients. And it's taken us that long to really wrap our head around some of the more complicated, nuanced components of it, and also to build visualizations so we can actually understand the data.
Exactly.
But to your question of where it's available, it's for sure available in North America, like, US, no problem. I actually don't know if it's available in Europe, which is embarrassing because I live in Europe. But the clients that we've used it for, Vincenzo, are all US clients, because to get to your second question, those are the ones that have enough ad spend and, more importantly, are spending on DSP such that they can get access to it. So in order to request access to AMC from Amazon, which is what you must do, you have to contact them directly, or your rep, or work with a third-party tool or software provider that can help you do that. If you have DSP, you need what's called a CFID, which is a thing you have in DSP, and then your user account ID. So those two things. And you request it, and then it takes about 2 or 3 weeks, but they'll set up an instance for you, and then you can actually start to query it directly and get in there. And what should you do? Well, yeah, you should have a substantial amount of ad spend. We would say at minimum probably 10K a month in DSP ad spend to make it make sense. Now, I do have it on some pretty good, reliable information that next year Amazon is going to make AMC available for just everybody. If you request it, and if you have enough ad spend within the confines of like the ad console. So like, sponsored product, sponsored brand, sponsored display. You don't necessarily have to be running DSP. But right now, one of the biggest use cases for AMC is actually understanding how the heck DSP is doing. Like, what's it actually doing for you? So you need to put some serious ad spend through it in order to do that.
That's very interesting. So it seems from the latest point you just mentioned, it will be the Amazon Marketing Cloud will basically become like an extra type of tool within your ad console for those that trigger certain criteria within the ad spend, right? Starting next year, right?
I can't say if they'll put it in the ad console directly, although I think if you go through, well, actually, I take that back. If you go through the ad console, and there you go to like the I'm doing this from memory, but there are like the measurement and reporting area. There is a link to it, but if you just click that normally, like on any account, it just goes to like, you don't have access to this page because you must have it enabled, and Amazon must create like an instance for you. So there's a link to it there, but it takes you to a URL that's separate. And the way that Marketing Cloud looks is nothing like the ad console interface. It's like, it's like just a box, and it's like, put in your queries, and you're like, what do I do?
Where do I get started? I know.
It's intimidating.
I know. Which is now brings me to my next question when it comes to Amazon Marketing Cloud. Given the fact that it has such a long learning curve because it's very technical, that's the reality. Well, you said this is something realistically that the only way you can really leverage this is to work with with a third party solution or an agency that's already certifying this, or will you say a seller itself to training could kind of leverage this? Because let's be honest, with sponsored products, you don't really see need a software or an agency to do it. You can,
No.
it's not rocket science. But this that we're talking here, because I have seen the platform myself as well, like I strongly believe like in you need a few months to really figure out. So what is your take with that? Like, will you say because of the huge gap, realistically the only way to really leverage this as a company is just go straight with software solution and agency, or you could say or you will say Amazon is making efforts to educate more the audience and it's going to become easier as they improve the dashboard and so on? Like, what is your prediction with them? Yeah,
I think for something that's so technical, Amazon's done a tremendous job of actually educating on it, because they do have a lot of templates. They have like 60 plus example queries and template queries you can use when you get it set up and going. So that part in their documentation, a lot of which I've leafed through and read through, and we have two people on our team who really do the bulk of our AMC stuff.
Yeah.
Both of them are certified with Amazon's like certification through the
Yeah,
Learning
exactly.
Console, which is actually hard. You know, a lot of those certifications on Learning Console are
I
not
know.
that difficult for someone who's been in advertising for a couple of years. You could just take it without studying and usually pass.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this one, it's a good like 7 or 8 hours of like intense work. It's
Wow.
not like an easy one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, Vincenzo, the answer is like it depends on the technical competency of like your team and people on your team or yourself. If you're someone who's a real data nerd, like I have friends in the Amazon space that are like Microsoft Access wizards, or people that
Yeah,
really
of
understand Tableau, for instance. And for them, like loading up a database and querying it is not something that's too complicated. However, I think the step that most people should take is probably look at working with a third-party tool provider, because imagine you're like in a swimming pool. There's like the deep end that's like 4 meters, and then you have like the 1 meter. If you jump right into the 4 meters, right, that's
You
basically
drown.
saying, yeah, I'm going to
Yeah,
open this up, and I'm going to get this database. I'm going to query it myself. Much easier to walk in the shallow end and slowly work your way down to the deep end of the pool. And that's basically what we did. You know, we work with a service provider that kind of dialed into the API. They gave us visualizations, so basically pretty charts and graphs to look at. And then we would ask them to make different queries, and we would ask them to bring up data. And then that's what they would do. And then we started to actually plug into it ourselves with a different service. And we built the visualizations ourselves, but we didn't run the queries. We still use like templated ones and change them. And now we're at the point where we're starting to tweak the queries and make them more and more custom, and use the raw output from that and load it in our database ourselves. We still do work with the tool provider, because you can kind of do both. They're not really limited to any one.
You can have
thing.
A hybrid approach.
Yeah, we have a hybrid approach. That's probably what we'll always do, honestly. But I think that if you are spending enough to make sense of the data coming out of AMC, it's probably worth to invest. And these tools are not super expensive. I mean, I'm not sure if you want me to say like which ones.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was going to ask this, like in case people want to know which one would you recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We started with a company called XPN. I think it's short for exponential. And actually, they were a great partner to get us started. They really, I think, specialize in probably enterprise level stuff. Like their algorithms and the requests and stuff that they do is a little bit beyond what we need. Now we work with IntentWise. They have a product called IntentWise Explore, which we're a big fan of that. And so with them, we do like a hybrid approach where we actually pull a lot of it into our database and run the visualizations ourselves. But then we also use their software, which has some built-in queries, visualizations, and we can actually pay them. It's more expensive, but we can pay them to actually write queries for us, which we haven't done yet. But if we have something really complicated, maybe we will in the future. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically like the on-ramp to it, I would say. But hey, if you got someone on your team who's like an SQL pro, they might be able to get in there and read through the documentation and what's called like the data schema, and they can understand that stuff like right away. And then they can start writing some queries.
Yeah. Throw them to the pool. Yeah.
Throw them right into the pool. Yeah. Toss them in there. No floaties, no life raft.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to this, something that I think people is gonna find us interesting. I will assume that this could be also more efficient depending on the industry you're selling into. What I mean by this, depending on the niche you're selling, when it comes to Amazon, you might need more information in terms of the touch points compared to other industry. Because as an example, I'm just thinking here, if you are a supplement brand, maybe for you this could be more important because you want to then run retargeting, you want to upsell the other of your products, things like that. Where if you're only selling like huge furniture, it's going to be a one-time touch point, most likely. There's not really a lot of retargeting, which I would say is one of the big things when it comes to this kind of technology. So what is your take on that? Would you say it's depending on the niche, you would say this is more efficient, or I'm wrong there, and maybe this can be used for any kind of niche. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you make me think of one thing immediately, which is we have two of the clients we are using AMC for. One of them has products that are generally speaking higher priced, right? So
Okay.
$200 or almost $200 and up to
Okay.
a couple hundred. And then we have another product that is it is like largely a supplements brand. I can't speak too much about the specifics,
Yeah.
but they're
Okay.
in the lower price range, right? So
Hmm.
high teens to low 30s USD.
Okay. Okay.
And we run the same queries or similar queries for those brands. And the results we get are, in some cases, totally different because
Yeah.
someone's path to purchase for a product that is $250 looks
Ex-
very, very different and is much
Yeah.
longer than someone's
Mhm.
path to purchase or something that's $19.95.
More an
And
impulse buy.
so,
Yeah.
what's that?
It's more an impulse buy if the price is very low, right?
Yeah, and you can see that
Yeah.
people have like a lifetime value, so they keep repurchasing, and you can figure that out with AMC and say like, okay, what is the this is actually one thing you can get from AMC. What is the new to brand percentage for sponsored products,
Mhm.
which you can't get anywhere else, as far as I'm aware.
Exactly.
And so you
Yeah.
can say which campaigns are driving new customers to our supplement, and we know that the repurchase rate is people buy 4 times a year because it's a 90-day supply or whatever, like roughly speaking. And you can
Exactly.
actually start to pull that out because you have that user ID, like I mentioned earlier. So oh, this person, we don't know their name obviously, but they're buying 4 times a year, roughly speaking. And so their value is this. How did we acquire that customer? What channel did they come in first?
Mm.
Whereas with that $250, $300 product, it's much more like, oh, we saw this person put it in their cart and then they bought 7 days later. So it was not an impulse buy.
Exactly.
Maybe they looked back and they put several items in their cart. And then they looked at different options. And then there was a Black
Compare.
Friday discount and they
Right.
said, now's the time. And they bought it.
Mhm.
Right. And how
Yeah.
did we reach them? Oh, they saw a DSP ad first, and then they saw a sponsored display, and then they saw sponsored products. They click that, they put it in the cart. 7 days later, they bought. Like that's a fascinating, customer journey. Call it like time to purchase in AMC. So it's not
Awesome.
that like one is better served than the other. If you have
Yeah.
enough data, enough spend, it's just that what you get out of it with some of the same requests or business questions, I guess you could call it, looks quite different. Quite different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this, where it starts to get very interesting, is when you put data outside of the Amazon ecosystem, right? Like you're mentioning that you can pull
Right.
data from other sources, and that's where things start to get really funny, because especially if you are a brand that does things outside of Amazon,
Yeah.
you can get very clever with that. So maybe can you give us high level, like maybe what are some of the things you have seen when you are a brand that go beyond Amazon, how you can leverage Amazon Marketing Cloud there? Yeah.
Yeah. This is one thing, Vincenzo, I'll be honest, we haven't done. We haven't uploaded third-party data into our AMC instances for clients because we've asked them, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
But it's either that they're unwilling to share it with Amazon, which is something that I've noticed in the
Yeah,
past
I
with
heard that
DSP.
a lot. I know.
Yeah, they're a little bit skeptical, but you know what? Like, I try to assume the best with Amazon, but I also am like, okay, I kind of understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
You
they
never
just
know
don't
the
feel like
fine
they have.
print.
Yeah, they have some way to say like, oh, that's an interesting customer. Maybe we'll email them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that the whole conceit for AMC is it's a privacy safe data clean room, is what they say. Like in all their marketing materials and all their stuff they talk about, Amazon says that like time and time again. So I want to believe that they're going to respect the privacy, even if you upload stuff like that. I do think that that's the way they have to go for legal reasons and for trust
Of
reasons,
course.
right?
Yeah.
However,
Of course.
the kind of stuff you can upload, yeah, it's probably just like purchasing history, ways to identify unique customers, their path to purchase, probably from other major ad platforms or email software, CRMs. I honestly haven't looked into it that much. The other
Yeah.
thing I'll mention that I talked about briefly in the intro is you could subscribe to data feeds too. So the best
Mhm.
example is probably one that Amazon publishes themselves, which is here's all the information you have in AMC that's people that have interacted with your ads, right? So these are all the
Okay.
events, the clicks, the conversions, the add to carts, the add to wish
Mhm.
lists. You get that in many, many more instances of interaction. But who
Yeah.
are the people that don't buy your stuff or don't interact with your ads? So it's like an A/B test in a way, right? So group A is the people who've interacted, and group B is people who've never seen your stuff. So what is the
Okay.
difference between people in group A and group B on their outcomes, buying your products? So That's basically one of the feeds you can subscribe to. And the price of that feed depends on how big your data set is. So if you have like a bigger set of data, it costs more per month to subscribe to that information. But it's an interesting idea to pull in.
Yeah, let me ask you a little bit more about this, because this sounds very interesting. So you are saying that these data sets we can buy from Amazon. Basically, Amazon is giving you data that basically you wouldn't put otherwise from your normal ads. Like this is the overall audience of the whole category. Basically, that's what we're saying, right?
Right. Yeah, you're trying to benchmark to like I guess the average person, or like the average customer, versus the ones that have been reached by your advertising, and then what, you know, subsequent actions each of those groups of people have taken.
Interesting.
Because you're
it's
trying
similar
to
it's similar to the benchmark we do with brand analytics, that we basically see your performance on that. We go to brand analytics and see your benchmarking conversions and all of that. I guess here's the same, but against the full data set of the category, right? It's the Amazon is sending you.
Yeah, and you subscribe to it, so it's like a data feed almost. You're like you're like paying a monthly amount, and yet again, I think the amount like changes month to month depending on how much data you're looking at processing. But we've also not tried that because it's an additional cost. And to be quite honest, you know, putting my agency hat on for a second, there's a lot of costs already associated with AMC. Like it's actually free to get, but you know, we pay money for software. We have two team members that are, you know, very skilled, like good team members, and like they're not cheap either. So we have to pay all this stuff to like make it work and figure it out. So it's been an investment and a learning curve for sure.
Awesome. So now, in terms of, just out of curiosity, with the cases you guys have been running with your clients, like what would you say are one of the most interesting behaviors you have seen the Amazon Marketing Cloud gives you in terms of insight? Like we know there is add to carts, we know there's people that has seen your product details page, but is there some specific events that you would say, wow, I didn't know Amazon Marketing Cloud could give you this insight? If not, I mean, just out of curiosity, like, is there anything that you find very interesting in terms of events?
There are oh, you mean like specific events that people
that people do throughout the journey, basically.
There's one that's like probably one of my favorites, which is people that have seen your ads but they haven't interacted with it in any way. So with retargeting or remarketing on Amazon, we're very used to saying like detail page views. So someone that viewed your product, but imagine you could address the people that viewed your ad. They didn't actually click it, they didn't look at your product, but they saw an ad. So that's like one step up from that, you know? And so you can actually query based on that. And then you can actually create, one of the other features in AMC you can do is you can create an audience by setting a query, and then you can push that audience over to DSP. So you could say, let's make an audience of people that have seen my ads, but they haven't interacted with them. And let's, you know, hit them with more ads, basically. Let's target them. So that means that they searched a keyword, like let's say it's like blue running shoes. You know, it's like they searched and they saw our ad, they saw other ads. We know that they're interested in that because they searched for it within this time frame we, you know, run this query for. But you know, they didn't actually click one of our ads. Let's try to get them on more. You know, it's like a form of like upper funnel retargeting, I guess. It's a very it's like a mind bending concept.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's very nice.
So that's one of my favorites. But the thing is with AMC, there are so many events that are in the schema, the actual tables. The challenge is actually figuring out how to piece them together to tell like a coherent story, because sometimes you run a query and it comes back and it's like too general, and sometimes you run it and it's too specific, and the amount of data is so vast, which is another challenge, that you're not sure how to even like process this. So you need to kind of find the like middle path between those two things.
Awesome. And when it comes to, just to start concluding, when you start to test these events and these queries, like how long you would say on average you will need to really figure out if this data set is valuable or not to your business in terms of the impact of the performance? How you measure that? Like you give it 1 week, 14 days? What is usually your testing phase when it comes to this?
That's a good question. Just a couple of like logistical concerns to kind of clear it up. So when you start an AMC instance, say you request it, Amazon gives it to you like a week and a half, 2 weeks later. It backfills 7 days. So, if you do it on the
Okay.
20th, you have data from the 13th November, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. But Amazon will hold that data in there for 13 months rolling period, and they'll start to delete it
Okay.
after that. If you
Yeah.
want to store it on the servers yourself, the queries you've run, that's up to you. Obviously, you can do that. But one of the things that's interesting about AMC is it's not really a reporting tool. It's like a business question answering tool. So you wouldn't really run a lot of queries like every 2 weeks I do this, every month I do that, like you might do for reporting inside of the ad console, usually for like DSP and sponsored ads.
Exactly.
It's more like I have a business question, which is in what order do people who buy our products see our ads? And this is one of my favorite use cases for AMC. They call it like basically unique reach by exposure, or like a conversion stack for advertising, like how do
Okay.
people see it? And so we can say the people that saw DSP, sponsored brands, sponsored display, and sponsored products in that order, there's this much revenue from them, and this was this
I
many people we
see.
reached, right? And then as you go up that, you can say like people that only saw DSP, well, they only bought this much. And then people that only saw sponsored
Mm-hmm.
products, which is actually still usually a pretty big amount of people that just saw sponsored
Of course.
products.
Of course.
They bought this much. So there's like use cases like that, and the bigger data set you query, the more information
Yeah.
you'll have to make use of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is specific to the query, because if you do something that is too big of a date range, well, some of that information is really too old to be useful.
Overlapping as well. Yeah, in some sense.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but like you don't want to query like 13 months of that, because well, whatever happened a year ago is maybe not really
Exactly.
relevant right now.
Yeah.
So you need to have
And that's
enough
very
velocity to
interesting.
spend.
Yeah, it's very interesting also the way you put it, which is basically a questions and answer. It basically the first thing when you say that,
Yeah.
it's like having your own chat GPT, but towards ads, right?
Except it's
you
way
ask
harder to
specific-
use. And it's
exactly,
way
you ask
harder
your
to
own
use.
prompt.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So super interesting. I mean, this topic again is so vast and so interesting that I'm sure
Right.
we're gonna have many more episodes about this in the future as we start opening the Pandora box. Because let's be honest, it's only been a year, as you said, so it's very new. Not a lot of people realistically even know how to start implementing it. So I'm sure as people like you in the space start playing more with it, and I'm sure I have seen you as well. You're doing a lot of content around that. And even Amazon, when they did Amazon Unboxing in London, they were pushing this a lot. So I definitely see that Amazon is going down that direction. They really want people to start RNGs even more. So it's a matter of time,
And I
It's
see
like
why too, Vincenzo, because like as Amazon, to further contextualize this, like to zoom out even further, we're all talking about products on Amazon, like physical products, right? But who is Amazon trying to make Marketing Cloud for, really? They're trying to make it for non-endemic advertisers.
Exactly.
So people that aren't selling on Amazon, but like Hyundai, like Ford, like car companies, like they want to be able to run sponsored TV, which has just come out recently, DSP, and all these other like upper funnel, mid funnel ads, and then be able to go into Marketing Cloud, maybe upload their own data about purchase customers and stuff, and then be able to tie that information together. That is something that's really complex, and that's something that's very high level. And that is something that we don't do because we mostly work with 3P and 1P sellers. But you can see where things are going and how Amazon is playing this, because advertising has gone from just retail media to one of the legs of their business. This is like the fourth or fifth pillar of Amazon as a company, along with like the marketplace, fulfillment centers, AWS. So the implications of this are like actually huge. And we're at the beginning stage of it for sure. And honestly, I consider myself like a 4 out of 10 on AMC. Like there's so much to learn. Like I'm at the beginning, man. I'm just scraping it,
I bet already being 4 out of 10 when it comes to this is already a master, because as I'm saying, not a lot of people it really knows this stuff. So I mean, everything you shared today is a ton of value. So thank you so much for that. And I want to thank you for being on the show. I think before we close today's episode, I want to give you a chance as well to tell us more about MC Pathfinder. I know, it's one also of the top agencies in the space when it comes to Amazon. I know you can tell us more about what you do with agency.
Sure. So we've been around for many years, like I mentioned earlier. And I think we are 23, 24 people now. We're mostly based in Western Europe, Central Europe, a couple people in Asia, a couple people in Central America. We're a global team, of course. And yeah, we do primarily advertising management for anything that drives traffic to Amazon. So we do Google to Amazon, Amazon internal ads, of course, DSP. And more recently, we've really started to push into the content space. So we have someone driving that internally, and we do a lot more content optimization because that is so married to the outcomes of advertising that we decided we needed to take that on. And we're starting to do a little bit more full service stuff too, because we work with our sister agency Sellerplex, and they do like logistics and finance and things like that. But yeah, that's basically us. We focus on a couple key things kind of related to ads and advertising on Amazon.
Yeah, very good, Brent. So thank you very much. I'm gonna make sure to put all your information down in the description. And thank you so much for being the show. And see you in the next one. Yeah, and keep learning. Next time, I want you to be a 9 out of 10. Yeah, please.
Okay. I'll shoot for 6 out of 10. I'm not sure about 9.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vincenzo.
Bye. Bye.